Okay, Dirshu, Amud Yomi, Daf Chaf, Amud Aleph. We're going to start at the bottom of Daf Yutet Amud Bet. I just want to clarify some of what we said yesterday. Parashiyot HaMo'adim, we are in the middle, the last line on Daf Yutet Amud Bet, in the middle of Gimel, Siman Kuf Lamed Zayin, Seif Gimel. Parashiyot HaMo'adim, Kemo mincha b'Shabbat v'sheni v'hamishi. The din of reading the parashiyot Yom Tov morning, the Kriyat Torah of Yom Tov has the same din as mincha of Shabbat, Monday and Thursday, Sheni v'hamishi. Why? Lefi shekeva kar'u haparashiyot b'Shabbatot shelahen. Because really, the Kriyat Torah of the Mo'adim, the Kriyat Torah b'Yamim Tovim, we already read them on their respective Shabbatot. We're reading them again on Yom Tov, but they obviously come from the reading, from the parashiot that we read throughout the year on Shabbat. Dinam kemo Mishnah Berura Sif Katan Yud Aleph Dinam kemo. What does it mean that the Kriyah of Yom Tov morning has the same din, has the same halacha like mincha of Shabbat, Sheni v'Hamishi? Umayri shal kol panim kar'u lahamisha gavre shlosha pesukim lekol ehad kadin. This means that as long as you called up 5 people, 5 aliyot, on Shabbat we have to call up 7 people. On Yom Kippur, we call up 6 people. On Yom Tov, we call up 5 people. So as long as you called up 5 people and you read a minimum of 15 pesukim altogether, 3 pesukim per aliyah. In other words, we have a formula of 5, 15, 3, 5 aliyot, 15 pesukim altogether, 3 pesukim per aliyah. Really, you could say 5, 3, 15. 5 aliyot, a minimum of 3 pesukim per aliyah, a minimum of 15 pesukim altogether. That is similar to mincha. What's the formula by Shabbat, mincha, and Monday and Thursday? A minimum of 3 aliyot and 10 pesukim. So it's a formula of 3, 10. A minimum of 3 aliyot and altogether a minimum of 10 pesukim. By Yom Tov, it's a minimum of 5 aliyot, a minimum of 3 pesukim per aliyah, and a minimum of altogether 15 pesukim. As long as you did that, you do not need to go back. Di'i lav hachi bevadai hozer vekoreh. If you don't have a minimum of 5 aliyot and a minimum of 3 pesukim per aliyah, in other words, a minimum of altogether 15 pesukim, of course you have to go back. Ve'ayin b'magen Avraham shekatav, dehu hadin, im deileg eze pasuk מהפסוקים שקוראים בספר תורה שנייה למפטיר עבור חובת היום. The Magen Avraham now is talking about the aliyah of maftir, the aliyah that we read in the second Sefer Torah. Dehainu pesuke korban musaf, regarding those pesukim that have to do with the korban musaf of the day, which we generally read in the maftir in the second Sefer Torah, she'eno hozer, that you don't have to go back if you omitted a pasuk, imlo, unless shehiser ikaran shel pesukim legamre, unless you missed a main part. What does that mean? What does it mean, ikaran shel pesukim legamre? Dehainu, for example, the Magen Avraham explains what he just said with an example. Dehainu b'Shabbat she'era bo yom rishon dechol hamoed Sukkot. It is the first day of Chol HaMoed Sukkot. So the situation, the case is as follows. He's talking about a year. You had the first day of Yom Tov, the second day of Yom Tov. The first day of Chol HaMoed, which is the third day of Sukkot, falls out on a Shabbat. You have the third day of Sukkot, first day of Chol HaMoed, falls out on Shabbat. Shekorin lemaftir bayom hasheni ubayom hashelishi. You have to read the inyan, you have to read the pesukim of bayom hasheni and the pesukim of ubayom hashelishi. Vehu dileg ubayom hashelishi af al pi shekara ubayom hasheni. He read those pesukim that have to do with ubayom hasheni, but he omitted those pesukim that have to do with ubayom hashelishi. Have ki'ilu lo kara klal mechovat hayom. It's as if he didn't read at all from the chovah of the day. Why? Because once again, it is the third day of Sukkot. It's the first day of Chol HaMoed that falls out on Shabbat, third day of Sukkot. Havik ilu lo kara klal mechovat hayom ledidan debekiin bekvi'a diarhe. In our days, even though we still do 2 days of Yom Tov, but in our days where the calendar is set, and we know that this is indeed the third day, and this person completely, he said Bayom Hashemini, he said the inyan of Bayom Hashemini, those pesukim of Bayom Hashemini, but he did not say the pesukim of Bayom Hashelishi. It's as if he didn't read at all from the Chovat of the day. Mihu, the Mishnah Berurah writes in brackets, Im karau Bayom Hashelishi, vedileg velo karau Bayom Hasheni. Let's say he did the opposite. He read Ubayom Hashelishi, the whole inyan of Ubayom Hashelishi, that part of Ubayom Hashelishi, but he did not read the part of Ubayom Hasheni. Eno hozer likrot bivracha. He does not go back and read with a bracha, ela poteach hasefer Torah vekore elu hapesukim lifnei hatzibur belo bracha. If a person omitted the inyan of Ubayom Hasheni, according to the Mishnah Berurah, he goes back, he reads those pesukim, but without a bracha. Va'ayin be'Eliyah Rabbah shehosif od. The Eliyah Rabbah adds to what the Magen Avraham is saying. Delepe'amim afilu im dileg rak pasuk echad, gam ken chozer likrot bivracha. There are times that even if you omitted one pasuk, then you have to go back with a bracha. We're talking about on Yom Tov right now. Ukegon shebe pasuk ze haya ikaro shel chovat hayom. This pasuk had to do directly with the chavah of the day, and it was omitted. כגון שדילג במה שקוראים למפטיר ביום ראשון של פסח מפסוק והקרבתם ולהלה עד לכפר עליכם. For example, a pasuk was omitted between the pesukim of V'hikraftem all the way until lechaper alechem, and those pesukim have to do with the essence of the day. Demisham v'hal'a eno shayach kol kach lechovat hayom. After lechaper alechem, those pesukim don't have to do so much with the obligation, with the essence of the day. Ubayom rishon shel Sukkot, another example. Im dileg, if even one pasuk was omitted from V'hikraftem until the end of the parasha, sofa parasha, o shechiser, another example, b'yom rishon shel Chol HaMoed keshehal b'Shabbat, eze pasuk shehu miparashat ubayom hashelishi. In any one of these examples, in any one of these cases, according to the Eliyah Rabbah, even though it's only one pasuk, but since it has to do with the essence, with the obligation of the day, with the very day itself, a person has to go back and say it repeat it with a bracha, meaning with a bracha before and after. Do a proper aliyah. You say the pasuk that was omitted together with two other pesukim, and the bracha is recited by the oleh before and after. V'chen iskim b'sefer Sharei Ephraim. The Sharei Ephraim agrees. I saw from Chacham David Yosef, according to the Sfaradim, that that a person, whether it is from the pesukim that have to do with the Yom Tov in the first Sefer Torah, or even those pesukim that have to do with the Maftir, we go back and repeat the pasuk we say the pasuk that was omitted. Obviously, we do a proper aliyah out of it, that pasuk together with two other pesukim. However, we do not make a bracha before or after. The oleh does not make a bracha before or after. Just going to double check that idea. Specifically in the maftir. Im dileg pasuk, I'm going to read quickly from the halacha brura. Im dileg pasuk echad bekriyat haTorah b'mo'adim. This is now for the Sfaradim. If a pasuk was omitted in the kriyat haTorah for the yamim tovim, for the mo'adim, yom tov shachrit in the morning, en tzarich lahazor velikro, you do not have to go back to read the pasuk that was omitted. Ukedin dilek pasuk echad b'Shabbat b'mincha o b'sheni u'v'hamishi. Like we said, it has the same status, the same din, the same halacha as Shabbat b'mincha, or Monday or Thursday. שהרי קרא כבר פרשיות המועדים בסדר קריאת התורה בשבת. Already these parashiyot, the קריאת התורה of the Mo'adim, they were already said on their respective Shabbatot throughout the year. ומכל מקום, היינו דווקא כשקראו חמישה עולים כל אחד שלושה פסוקים. That's as long, like we said earlier, that there were 5 aliyot with a minimum of 3 pesukim per aliyah. If there were 5 aliyot with a minimum of 3 pesukim per aliyah, even if a pasuk was omitted in the Kriyat Torah of Yom Tov, we do not go back. We do not make an extra aliyah. We do not have to make an extra aliyah in order to read the pasuk that was omitted. Vehu hadin im dilek pasuk echad beparashat korbanot hamoadim shekore hamaftir. The same is true for the parashat of the korbanot of the Yom Tov that are read in the maftir. ומכל מקום דעת כמה פוסקים שאם דילג פסוק שיש בו מעיקר חובת קורבנות היום צריך לחזור ונכון לחוש לדבריהם ולחזור ולקרוא בלא ברכות. As far as the korbanot of the Yom Tov are concerned, the korbanot that are found in the maftir, even though a person doesn't, even though the halacha is you don't have to go back, however, according to some poskim, you should. Therefore, we are hoshesh for those poskim that say you should, and halacha, if some of the pesukim that were omitted, we're talking about the pesukim in the maftir that have to do with the chovat hayom, that have to do with the essence of the day, that have to do with the korbanot of the day, a person should go back and read those pesukim without a bracha. And if it happened, v'im ira, for example, בשבת חול המועד סוכות, בחוץ לארץ שטעה המפטיר בכמה מקורבנות יום אחד במקום שני ימים, כגון ביום השלישי של החג צריך לקרוא ביום השני. The mistake was, like we discussed in the Mishnah Brura, that on the third day you need to read ubayom hasheni ubayom hashelishi. It is the third day of Sukkot, the first day of Chol HaMoed, and it's Shabbat. So you need to read ubayom hasheni ubayom hashelishi. V'kara rak ubayom hasheni chozer v'koreh ubayom hashelishi belo beracha. And the same is true if you only read ubayom hashelishi or not ubayom hasheni. In both those cases, in all cases, though in that case of the maftir, when you read bayom hasheni and not bayom hashelishi, or you read bayom hashelishi and not bayom hasheni, in both those cases you need to go back and you need to read what you missed without a bracha. If you just missed a pasuk that had to do with the korbanot of the day in the maftir, it is proper. Ideally, it is proper that a person should go back and read also without a bracha. Let's go to Seif Daled in the Shulchan Aruch. Im kara ehad shene pesukim, tzarich lahazor velikrot. If by an aliyah only 2 pesukim were read, 3 pesukim for an aliyah to be considered an aliyah, you require a minimum of 3 pesukim. If only 2 pesukim were read, you have to go back. We're going to explain the Mishnah Brura. What does it mean you have to go back? Ve'im lo kar'u ben sheloshtan ela tisha pesukim. Now, if you have a situation that between all 3 aliyot, only 9 pesukim were read, shlosha lekol ehad, 3 pesukim by each aliyah, einam tzrichim lahazor velikrot uraya ledavar parashat Amalek. According to Maran HaShulchan Aruch, you do not have to go back. You do not have to go back and read. And the rayas from the parashat of Amalek, the parashat of Amalek is an entire subject matter that is contained within 9 pesukim. According to Maran HaShulchan Aruch, I'm not saying right now halacha lema'aseh. According to Maran HaShulchan Aruch, from there, it's okay, for example, Purim morning to just read 9 pesukim. Halacha lema'aseh, we are mahmir, that even though there are 9 pesukim, we double up, we repeat the last pasuk. But according to Maran HaShulchan Aruch, he brings a proof that since the entire subject matter of Amalek is contained within 9 pesukim that we read Purim morning, therefore we have a proof from here that if a person read only 9 pesukim three aliyot with three pesukim for each aliyah, he does not have to go back. It is proper, even though Maran HaShulchan is posek like this, it is proper, the halacha brura Chacham David brings, that we are mahmir, and we should do another aliyah with three pesukim. Meaning, even though technically it's fine, still we should be mahmir, and it should be another aliyah with three pesukim without a beracha. Let's see the Mishnah Brura. Shne pesukim. Av sheben hakol karu asara pesukim. Let's say you have a case where by one aliyah you only read 2 pesukim. However, altogether you have 10 pesukim. That's what we're talking about. The cases where you have 10 pesukim, let's say, an example, you have 10 pesukim. But in one aliyah you only read 2 pesukim. Kigon, sheshnayim shelefanav karu arba'a. In the 2 aliyot beforehand, you have 4 pesukim in each aliyah. Afilu hachi, even in this case, tzarich lahazor velikrot. Even if altogether you have 10 pesukim, but since in the aliyah you only have 2 pesukim, you need to go back. De'en kriya hashuva bepachot mishlosha pesukim. It's not considered a kriya, it's not considered an aliyah less than 3 pesukim. Vekatav hataz. Dehu hadin b'shaharit b'shabbat. Af achar shekar'u shiva keru'im kadin. The Taz writes, even on Shabbat, and even when you already called 7 aliyot, you were mekayem the chovah of the day, you called up 7 people, 7 aliyot. Im era shekara echad achar ze shene pesukim. But let's say you added on an aliyah, a mosif, and in that mosif, you only read 2 pesukim. Nam yahozer mehai ta'ama shekatavnu. You need to go back. You need to go back and redo the aliyah. Why? Because that is not considered an aliyah. An aliyah is with a minimum of 3 pesukim. Sarich lahazor velikrot. Ulinyan, what does it mean that you need to go back? Maran HaShulchan Aruch writes, if you have an aliyah that you only read 2 pesukim, tzarich lachzor velikrot, what does that mean exactly? Ulinyan beracha lefaneha kachtino. The halacha as far as the bracha of Asher Bahar Banu before the aliyah, this is the halacha is as follows. Im adain lo berach beracha aharona. If you did not yet recite the bracha after the aliyah, Asher natalanu et torato, torat emet, af al pi shekevar galala sefer Torah, v'haya bedato levarech, even if they already closed, they wrapped the sefer Torah, and you have every intention to make the bracha of Asher natan lanu et torato, torat emet, v'niskeru shelo kara rak shene pesukim. At that point, it came to light, people realized, it was realized that only 2 pesukim were read. Hozer v'koreh belo beracha lefaneha. You go back and you read altogether 3 pesukim belo beracha lefaneha. Why? Because you didn't yet make the bracha after the aliyah. If the mistake was realized, if the Hazan, the Baal Kolei, or anybody realized at that point, before the Oleh said the bracha afterwards, if at that point they realized their mistake, you redo the aliyah by reading altogether 3 pesukim without saying a bracha beforehand. Aval im kevar berach beracha aharona nistaleka kriya harishona legamre. However, aval im kevar berach beracha aharona nistaleka kriya harishona legamre. If the ole already made the after bracha of the aliyah, that aliyah is completely lost. V'lachen tzarich lahazor ulvarech lefaneha ulhatchil mimakom shehitchil bakriya hakodemet ki kriyat shnei pesukim elu lo alu klal. You need to go back. you make the bracha before, it's a whole, you have to redo the aliyah completely, meaning a bracha before has to be said, Avashel Baharbanu. You begin at the end of the previous aliyah because the two pesukim that you read don't count at all. So you have to go back. You have to go back to the end of the previous aliyah. Ve'od pasuk echad imo kedei lashlim shlosha pesukim. So you read the two pesukim that were omitted plus another pasuk in order to have a minimum of 3 pesukim. Ve'im hashenayim shelefanav lo karu rak ve'im ואם השיניים שלפניו לא קראו רק שלושה, צריכו להשלים עד 4 פסוקים כדי שיהיה בצירוף 10 פסוקים. Now let's say the first 2 aliyot, you only read, the Baal Koreh, the Hazan only read 3 pesukim by each aliyah. So then you add in, you don't add in 1 pasuk, you need to add in 2 pesukim to have a grand total of 4 pesukim in that aliyah in order to have a minimum of altogether 10 pesukim. ואפילו כבה קראו לאחד, ואפילו אם כבה קראו לאחד העולה אחריו ועלה לתיבה. Even in a case where you already were, where the next person was already called up and he came up to the teva, to the bima, and they realized their mistake, יעמוד שם אותו האחר עד שיברך זה שנית ויקרא 3 פסוקים וכנזכר לעיל ויברך לאחריו. If let's say you already called up the next person and then the mistake was realized, that next person stands to the side, יעמוד שם אותו האחר עד שיברך זה שנית, until the person who was already there, where the mistake was made, the person where the mistake of 2 pesukim instead of reading 3 pesukim was made, until he goes up a second time. He makes the bracha before and after. He makes the bracha before they read 3 pesukim, and he makes the bracha after. ואחר כך יקרא זה שעלה אחריו. And afterwards, if there's still more aliyot, we're talking about on a day, if there is still more aliyot, then the next person goes up. ואם כבח התחיל השני לברך או שסיים כל הברכה ונזכרו. Now let's say they called up the next person and he began to say the bracha avasher baharbanu mikol amim, and or he began to say it, or he already finished saying it, v'niskeru, and at that point they realized that they only read 2 pesukim by the previous person, by the previous aliyah. Yesh lo lehatchil mimakom shehitril ze shelefanav דהיינו אף 2 הפסוקים הקודמים ויסיים עוד פסוק ויברך לאחריה. So what do? He goes back to the beginning of the previous aliyah, meaning to the point before the 2 pesukim that were read. Those 2 pesukim are read together, obviously with another pasuk, and then he makes a bracha afterwards. Avasher natan lanu et torato torat emet. יש אומרים שמלבד 2 פסוקים הקודמים יקרא עוד 3 פסוקים. Some say aside for the 2 pesukim that are read, he should add on another 3. והראשון יעמוד שם עד שיגמור זה. And the person who was there originally, who had the aliyah with the mistake of only 2 pesukim and not more, he waits there. ואחר כך יברך הראשון שקרא 2 פסוקים ויקרא להלן ממקום שסיים זה. And then the person that was there originally, 2 pesukim, he should continue from where the person left off, if there's still a need for more aliyot. ואם הראשון ירד כבר מהתיבה ואחר כך נזכרו יכולים לקרות אף לאחר להשלים הקרואים השלושה. Now if the person that was there originally, if he already left the teva, meaning we're still in the case where they realized the mistake after they already called up a second person and after he said the brachot, and the original person that was there already left the teva, you don't have to call him back. יכולים לקרות אף לאחר להשלים הקרואים השלושה. במה דברים אמורים בשלא היה כהן בבית המקדש וקראו ישראלים? And all these scenarios that we were just discussing, we were talking about where Kohen and Levi was not called. We're talking about in a case there was no Kohen and Levi present, and Israel was called for Rishon and Sheni. אבל אם קרא זה בקוהן, however, if a kohen was called for the first aliyah, shekara rak shene pesukim, and only 2 pesukim were read by his aliyah. V'achar kach berach halevi, afterwards the Levi was called up, and the Levi already made the beracha, ve'az niskar sheta kon velo kara rak shene pesukim, and then the mistake was realized that the kohen only read, by the aliyah of the kohen, only 2 pesukim were read. לא יתחיל הלוי אלא ממקום שפסק הכהן וקם מכאן ולהלן 3 פסוקים. We said earlier that if you realize the mistake after the next ole already goes up and after he already either began the bracha or said the bracha, then you continue with that ole, you go back, you repeat the 2 pesukim that were said, and you carry on and you add 1 pasuk, and according to some opinions you add on 3 pesukim. However, by a kohen you don't do that. By a kohen, you just continue 3 new pesukim. You don't read the 2 pesukim that were read by the aliyah of the kohen. In any case, by Shabbat of Mincha, Monday and Thursday, if you're missing pesukim, that's okay. It's Shabbat morning that it's a big problem that you're missing pesukim. But by Shabbat, by Mincha, by Monday and Thursday, even if you're missing pesukim, as long as you have 10 pesukim altogether, you're fine. Why do we skip out on those 2 pesukim if the mistake of just reading 2 pesukim was said by a kohen? Why does the Levi start from the next pasuk and read a minimum of 3 pesukim? Tiyeh pegam LaKohanim hanimsaim sham keshikra halevi merosh hasefer. This potentially could be a pegam, could be, so to speak, insulting, or it could be damaging to the kohen when the Torah, when the pesukim that were read by him are read again by the Levi. V'achar halevi yikra shenei Yisraelim lehashlim minyan hakeruim. After the Levi, so what do we do in such a case? Shnei Yisraelim are called up in order that we should have altogether 3 oles, 3 aliyot, because the first one didn't count. Why does the Mishnah Berurah write 2 Yisraelim after the Levi? Because we can't call a kohen after the Levi. Then kohen kore achar Levi. The 2 pesukim of the kohen, the 2 pesukim of the aliyah of the kohen that were read, it doesn't count. Therefore, the aliyah doesn't count. Ve'im era b'Shabbat u'b'Yom Tov shacharit shekaru le'echad min ha'olim shene pesukim u'berach le'acharei v'niskar sheta'a. If now we were talking about Shabbat by Mincha, Monday and Thursday. But what about Shabbat and Yom Tov morning? Shekaru le'echad min ha'olim shene pesukim u'berach le'achareha v'niskar sheta'a. That by one of the aliyot, only 2 pesukim were read, and then the bracha was said after, and then only did they realize the mistake. Yesh bazit, yesh omrim, according to one opinion, yesh omrim de bazit tov yoter sheshuv lo yikrahu be'atzmo. According to one opinion, they should not continue with the person they called up, with the person where the mistake in the aliyah was made. Rather, they should call up somebody else. De behol, what's the difference between Shabbat, Yom Tov, and Hol? De behol shasur lehosif al minyan hakeruim. During the week, which is asur to add to the number of people we call up, we are strict about calling up 3. Im kan im ikru acher lehashlim bimkomo mirze kemo shekara arba'a keruim. If we call up another person when a mistake that only 2 pesukim was read by an aliyah, so it's going to appear that 4 aliyot were given. Masha'en ken b'Shabbat mutar lehosif. However, on Shabbat it's mutar to add on. Yoter tov shikra acher mishikra oleze shne pamim b'sefer Torah achad. It is better to call up another person and to reread those 2 pesukim and add another pasuk or add another 3 pesukim than to call up the same person, because lechatchila we don't call up the same person to the sefer Torah. De'en nachon lechatchila kamevua b'simon resh pei beit v'yatchil mimakom she'itchil rishon. So where do you start from? You start from where he started by the previous ole, the kaniskar le'el, the yashlimu shiva keruim milevad ze shekara shne pesukim, and you still need 7 aliyot, 7 people called up to the Torah, aside for the person where where only 2 pesukim were read, because that doesn't count. V'yesh omrim de'af b'Shabbat en tzarich likro la'acher. There are those who say that even on Shabbat you don't need to call another person. You could call the same person where the mistake in the aliyah happened. You can call him back up in order to do the aliyah properly, reading altogether a minimum of 3 pesukim, exactly the same way you do during the week. Bezrat Hashem, we will continue tomorrow in the middle of Seif Daled in the Shulchan Aruch, going into Daf Chaf Amud Bet.